So I posted something yesterday in regards to, excuse me, the Trump administration proposing to cut the Section 8 program budget by 40% and then sending off grants to each individual state for them to manage their own programs. All right. So, of course, the post goes viral. My limitation on IG is a minute and 30 seconds, guys. So, we're talking about a minute and a half. You can't give proper context. So, of course, the comments go left field. I think if there's any advancement in by the people, the first thing we need to do is not take things so personal. And I'm a work in progress with that. With some things, I'm very practical and critical thinker with most things. And I say that because when we lead with emotion in conversations that um, it's a broader conversation, right? Everyone's seeing it from their paradigm. Some people have a little bit more data and information than others. Some just can analyze things better than other people. Um, and I think we just have to kind of listen to all voices in all conversations. Now, mind you, putting a period on something and not allowing for anything else to come inside the room is not the proper discord. All right, so we'll get started. They'll catch it on the replay. All right, guys. So this is the housing trap that no one's talking about. All right. So yesterday I make this post, like I said before. And let me just give you some background on me and some context so you understand like why I can speak on this. Real estate investor, developer, own a brokerage, real estate brokerage in New York, where we specialize in housing the homeless. So we've been working with New York City well over 6, 7 years in that division solely. We only work with state funded programs in New York City. So this is the biggest real estate market in America. I've done in the last 6 or 7 years thousands of transactions, in all in housing the homeless. All right. And New York is one of those states that is well funded. They have the program currently is called it used to be called Link, and now it's City FEPS. So you guys can kind of do your background on that. So not only have I been a landlord, uh, manager, managed tenants, I've managed my own properties, and then when you add the broker piece to it, I have kind of a broad scope on what's happening here with this administration and all things moving forward. On top of that, the piece that most people are forgetting is I'm also a crypto educator. So that leads me into the future of finance and having to research years out, right? I've been in it for 10 years. So I've had this data for so long that most people have no clue what's being built out here. So I make it a thing. Formed Skyton Academy about 3 years ago, which teaches people the future of finance, all things AI, crypto, blockchain, automation, you name it. And then, of course, the biggest thing is the dot connect, right? Being able to take information and kind of give our take on it. We don't follow legacy media. We're not paid by any body, right? We have to generate what we generate. So we are here for the people, right? Because you'll get on certain platforms and it just most people are just not informed and they'll just say whatever for shock value. And that's what some people kind of said in the comments. And I'm like, then you must not know me from that 90-second clip and all that I do. So let's clear it up. So this is the housing trap that no one's talking about, right? Now, the Trump administration proposed a 40% cut to the Section 8 and housing assistance budget for 2026. All right. So it's not just about the cuts, guys. It's about the power being shifted from the federal government to the states. Okay. And that means that for real estate, digital economies, and your freedoms, we have to start to look a little bit more closely at this shift here from federal to state. All right. So let's just get with the numbers. All right, let's start from the beginning. So Section 8 was created, officially known as the Housing Choice Voucher Program. It was established back in the 1970s. All right, it was to help low-income families, especially single moms in underserved communities. Okay, so this is the basis of it. So to assist them in gaining access to safe and affordable housing in the private rental market. All right, we had a lot of things going on back in those days with redlining and people just not being able to listen, guys. At the end of the day, when you don't have ownership in things, you don't have control. So you just kind of have to play the game the way that it's being dealt to you. So for many Black families, it became a critical tool from escaping particular neighborhoods, moving into safer school districts, stabilizing generational housing security. But it came with a trade off, right? Relying on the federal government, restrictions on income and mobility, and generational dependence on without a path to ownership. So, there's rules that state that you can't have a man in the house over the age of 18. So this was part of the deconstructing of families through the system that was put there to help. I'm not caring about Republican or Democrat on this. That was one of the draw ins for a lot of people. Like they must have been following me, like, oh, this guy was pushing Trump. No, I wasn't pushing Trump. You have the lesser of two evils. It's the same bird with just different wings. They just have two different ways of doing the same exact thing that doesn't benefit. And I would just put it on the Black and brown community, right? Or just people overall, guys. So if you don't understand that this country is a corporation and that you're a product of it, right, then this conversation isn't for you. You understand? And I'm not taking anything away from the opportunities that can be made in America, but in order to do that, you have to kind of rethink what you were taught. You have to understand financial literacy, right? It's one thing to make money; it's another to grow money and preserve money. That's the part we haven't really mastered yet. Okay, these type of things have to be taught, or you have to learn those L's lessons in life to get to that point. Okay, so now with the proposal, it's a 40% cut on Section 8 rental assistance, um, slashing access to vouchers for millions of low income families who rely on it. All right, guys. So there's a backlog. Now, we have to give proper context in the time that we're in right now, because you hear a lot of people like, oh, just go to work. Oh, my taxpayer dollars. That's an old talking point, right? Because I work with the program. I have assisted on the state and federal level, right, with feedback. I mean, over the years, it's just draining how inefficient both are. Okay, this is firsthand experience now. I have people who are trying on Section 8, like literally trying, taking Ubers to work, damn near taking 70% of their rent, and not rent, but just a good portion of their salary. It was just to get to work. Right. So this is why housing and job creation and all of it, it's all mixed into the same conversation. This isn't like just get up, go to work. Like this isn't the days of the past, guys. So we have AI automation, um, lower skilled individuals in those programs. That means your earning ability is is a cap on it. And not that you put it there. I'm just telling you that there's a cap on it. So if the program tells you you can't make this certain amount, I've seen people even get jobs and turn them down because they need the assistance. The group of people that I don't think people are really taking into account here, it's not the voucher holders. It's the many Americans that work, middle class, mom and dad, or however much people in the household that are pooling money together that can barely make ends meet. It's a high percentage of people currently right now that's one paycheck away from losing it all. Right. So this is not the voucher recipients. I don't want you guys to focus on that, because they'll make it racial and they'll say, oh, the Section 8 is for Black people. And then that's when everything's up in arms and everything has to change. That's not the case, because if you check the data, you'll understand who actually uses the program more out in the middle America. We'll talk about that on another conversation. So back to the administration. So the federal government would hand over the housing responsibilities to state governments, essentially telling them, listen, you deal with it. All right. So the argument on the federal side is, listen, we're reducing our federal budget. It's up to the states to do what they need to do. So now let me give you a firsthand account of what I do in New York City. housing the homeless. I'm talking about thousands. So we have to find landlords that would accept this voucher. Then we have to sell them on the individual, because not everybody homeless is a terrible person or substance abuse or mental health. It's a large population, but not everybody fits that mold. I have worked with teachers that are in shelters. I have worked with even law enforcement. Things happen, guys. Domestic abuse, um, you name it, multitude of things. Mental health, substance abuse, so many different reasons why people would end up in a shelter needing assistance. This is how the world operates. Okay. So now, in doing and working with the state, I can tell you how inefficient it is for states to already manage, and I'm talking about the biggest state, New York, to already manage an existing program along with the federal guidelines. So now when you put all of this on them, guys, it's taken us 3-4 months to do a rental package from the time that we find someone. This is how much bureaucracy and red tape are in between this. I'm talking about inspectors that need to go out. Then you have the private sector that's wrapped around it, because now the city has to use zip cars, which is like a daily rental situation, which is costs way more money. Or if you have a car, they have to reimburse you. It is a mismanaged um, program. And this would happen in every state. Once you bring it to the state level, they're understaffed. And what happens with the state level that you guys don't realize is that's when you have to bring the public sector in order to close the gap. This is where it gets weird with the digital or neo feudalism that I talked about. The post was for you to go research that and then kind of make sense of it. Now I'm gonna keep painting this picture for you until you get a clear image of it. All right. So when I'm doing business on the state level, also as a landlord, I'm doing business with state funded programs. Now let me tell you about these state funded programs. Once private guys are involved in this, I'm talking about the big hedge funds, what you're seeing is a shift in housing now. People aren't buying these condos that they first started to build. So what they do is they create a partnership with the state to say, hey, in exchange for tax subsidies, tax credits, we're going to give this much percentage of the building to lower income families in accepting vouchers. So we had a property in Detroit, and literally I went with a state funded program. Literally everybody moved out days apart from each other. When the state funded program starts to get the bigger developers in play, they are considered the priority. This happens on the broker side in New York. There are buildings that are like NYCHA certified. They just work hand in hand with the city, and they close the gap because these guys have a lot of doors. So a mom and pop guy like us, don't let them fool you out there thinking that there's this huge pool of Section 8 people that are willing to. It doesn't work like that. Remember, they have kids. They need to be in certain school districts. Like there's a lot of things to take into account for this program that these guys online are not being honest about. I manage my own properties. There's a reason why I did. And we had way more income than needed to cover a management company. But I needed to know, one, who my tenants are, and then it tells me exactly what's happening out there. You know what I saw in Detroit? $987 was the Social Security amount for adults that were going after a unit that I had for rent for $750. Understand, $987. I had a 1-bedroom unit that was going for $750 market rent. This is what these people, adults, are paying out there. And then you have the able body, you have adult seniors, you have people with mental health that need a little bit of assistance. What you don't realize at the state level is the state needs to get a lot of people off their books. So what I've seen is an influx of mental health cases, right, at the state level. And I'm not saying that they push it on you, but as a landlord who doesn't know the game, you get one of these tenants, and this is not about um, discrimination or anything. I'm just telling you what's out there so you understand. One, it's going to be impossible to remove them. Two, it's more of supportive housing than anything, because there's no landlord that wants to put up with some of the stuff that I've seen and witnessed myself. You understand? So when you get to the state level, I'm telling you, you have no clue what you're about to deal with at the state level. The power for the private institutions, they can really dominate at the state level and not so much at the federal level, because you don't have to climb the ladder too high at a state than if you had to go to DC and figure out how to navigate that world, right? So at the state level, there's this relationship between public and private, and this is where we get into this digital or neo feudalism that I talk about. All right, so keep going. So the pros of this at the state level, I want to give everything. The state can design localized, faster housing programs, opportunities for innovation in the public and private partnerships, and then real estate investors can engage with state initiatives. Massive funding gaps in state without the resources to support it. Um, they won't be able to support the vulnerable population. This is one of the cons. Housing support becomes unequal across the United States. So what works in Texas may not work in Michigan, right? And then the rise in homelessness and rental defaults could destabilize the rental market. So as a real estate investor, a guy who's like researched this market, different states, right? Analyzing, I noticed a pattern and a trend since the pandemic. I used to buy from tax lien sales. They pulled all the tax lien sales, right, during the pandemic. So everything was off. Then they started to, when they did come back, I didn't see the backlog of properties since the pandemic. So what happened to all the pre-foreclosures? What happened to all the foreclosures? These things weren't hitting market. I have friends who are institutional investors. So they were buying, the banks were selling things off behind closed doors, right? Big portfolios, sight on scene. You cannot compete with that as a mom and pop investor. Okay, so I'm watching the back end of this. I'm getting the information and the details from my friends who are on the opposite side of the fence that I'm on. So this is where I'm grabbing all this data from. So you see the rise in institutional interest in single family homes. Even Warren Buffett, he tells you, listen, if you want to be successful, he's like, buy a bunch of single family homes and just hold them. What they're seeing is, and the thing about us Black and brown people is we buy to use the word generational wealth. That's not the case with real estate. One, if you don't have the family intact. Two, if they're not working together, then it's just a term you guys are throwing around loosely. You have to analyze the property not only for today's market, but for tomorrow's market, meaning you need to know where are people employed, what type of people, even with the Section 8 voucher, there's a lot of questions that people don't ask. They're not all the same, guys. Not every program's the same. Not every voucher recipient is the same. So if you don't know how to manage that, you can find yourself in a world of trouble. Okay. Then I start to track the laws of how hard it is. Tenant landlord laws. Some states you can't, New York, you damn near can't even get somebody out of your property. Like they make a living doing this stuff. So I'm pretty versed in this, guys. All right. So just hear me out. Now at the state level, remember I told you they have to set up initiatives with private guys. Private guys can no longer sell $1 million condos. So these buildings are now being subsidized as tax credits. People utilize real estate as a tax haven. I don't know an investor out there that's living solely on his or her rental income because listen, the way these properties work, you better have some working capital because there's always going to be an issue somewhere. Right. So, yeah, you can make a living with the rents, but you should also know that if something was to ever happen to the rents, you should also have enough income that can carry that. So if you're relying on the rental income to carry the property, ask yourself, if I was to lose one tenant, two tenants, three, this is why I don't do single families, because once you have an issue, you have an issue. When you're in the multifamily game, one roof, one grass cutting divided by amongst people. So even if I lost two or three tenants in a multi-unit, it could be covered. But most people aren't even ready to cover their own mortgage at this point, never mind an investment property that can go left field. So these guys online, they'll tell you, hey, Steve, no, it's guaranteed. Nothing's guaranteed. I remember when I was right when we came into Detroit, they had just, there was a government shutdown, and this was during the Trump administration. It went on for so long that they started to affect the payments that went out to landlords. They never gave them the money back. What they did was they ended up paying them a little bit in increments to catch up over time. So if we have government shutdowns, I've seen this program shut down before. So now if they're asking for the program to be cut and moved to the state side, I could tell you that you guys should start researching your local state programs right now. Understand? If there's any nugget I want to give you guys, it's not to sit in fear. I'm always like a solution-driven guy. 90 seconds, you might want to think it's bait. I gave the information on what to research. You guys went in the comments and everything went left field from there. So now I'm going to be the adult in the room and really break this down correctly. All right. So you had the rise of this digital feudalism. All right. And here's where it gets deeper. So if I told you at the state level, what I've been witnessing is the amount of private organizations or private institutions. Donald Trump's one of those guys too. The Trump organization owns Left Rack City. Like, some of the biggest projects in New York are valued at hundreds of millions of dollars. And these guys are all owners of these things. When you start to bring in at the state level and the state has to build certain things out, the state is going to build it out based on the needs of the particular area. Now, in order to close the housing gap, it's not going to be mom and pop guys who own 2 or 3 units that are already rented in order to do this, right? Because we have a backlog of people coming in now, middle class people, like on the verge of homelessness at this point in America now. Today's day, so for the people that say go out to work, AI and automation is getting rid of that stuff. And it's just not factory workers. It's not cashiers. It's higher level corporate jobs are being cut. Layoffs at Dell, layoffs at Google, all types of things are happening because of AI and automation. So people in the comment, I think, are stuck on old ways. Like, just because you have a job today doesn't mean you're going to have a job tomorrow. So this is where it gets a little shaky. And you have to believe that the housing, the job market is dwindling, right? We give all our power to centralized authorities. So when they want to automate things and get rid of a workforce, they can, they will. They are doing it already. All right, saying hearsay. Okay, so where's the future? This is back to the digital feudalism. And just hear me out. Your employer owns your home. You buy food from employee-ran stores. Your healthcare, transportation, and money are all inside one closed-loop system. Let's not be dumb, guys, because every single body that's listening to this, I would hope, has some sort of job or income, whether it comes from working for somebody or working on your own. So in the case of working for somebody, you rely on that job. I don't know too many people that don't rely on that job to pay either their rent or their mortgage at the top of the month or whatever date it transpires for you, right? So that means we are already in a system that relies on other people to pay us in exchange for our time in whatever industry we're in. Okay, so there's not too much control there, because if your industry starts to cut jobs, you're not just going to leave that job to go get another job in the same industry. You have to upskill yourself. I'm not seeing that in the Black and brown community. So for those of you who think I am here trying to clickbait, understand AI Visionaries Network, free AI training community, almost 800 students in there. Nothing. We don't ask you for anything to come in there. Skyton Academy started 3 years ago, selling the future of finance. If you don't know how hard that is, it's almost impossible to sell sun in paradise, right? It's all over. Like, people just aren't ready for this, so it's not easy. Okay, we made it happen. People are coming into it slowly. All right, so offering solutions to look out further into the future. A lot of us are stuck in what we call scarcity mindset. So you are just trying to survive, and I get it. I get it. It was passed down from our parents' parents. Like, you kind of see the trend. If you don't break the curse and start to figure out ways to move in this corporation and don't ask for handouts, this stuff is definitely coming. Because look at the pandemic in the way that it was really just a test to see. Half the population comply. The other half kind of push back a little bit. I don't know what the final numbers are, but I can tell you that we're not talking to people because of decisions that we made for our body. So this is how separated we are. I've never met a country that argues about everything. Left, right, blue, black. Is that a boy or a girl? Like, now we're overcomplicating the conversations, and we have more things to argue about as these people are building these systems that you're saying, oh no, they're not doing, but you're not paying time. You're not paying attention to it. I am. So if it lands for you, it lands. I would tell everybody, go do your research on it. All right. So you have all these things wrapped up in your employer now. Now, here's an example. It's happening right now. So Amazon worker towns, right? They're being built near fulfillment centers. That's happening now. This is why Jeff Bezos bought that real estate company the other day. That's what it was for. Okay. Then you have the Google campus communities. This is all planned housing. You have Facebook's Willow Grove project. So it's housing, stores, school, all inside one corporate town. You have Tesla proposed Utopia. That's the community in Texas that they're building out. Now, see where it's going? So it's military-style private developments where rent, security, and food are employee controlled. Guys, when you see these Amazon stores, on campus. This is all training the employees. It's convenience. It's cheaper. You don't have to pull out any cash or money. You pick something up, it charges you. You put something down, it takes it out of your cart. This is what AI and automation does. It is the ultimate form of control. You call it convenience. I call it control, right? Because you're saving time, but then you find yourself not having time. And then we're operating in a standpoint of what? If we're on social media and we're spending all our time and we're not getting paid from it, then when you're not paying for something, then you are the what? The product. See where I'm going with this? So now you're a product of your employer, whether or not you want to call yourself that, you are. They can fire you, they can replace you. Some people are a little more valuable than others, but at the end of the day, it's still your employer. Okay, so when they start to cut, what do you think happens now? So they're changing up the way that they control or put their controls in place, because that work from home situation, they weren't happy with it. Yeah, it gave you the flexibility and the freedom to see what it's like to be an entrepreneur in the sense of having time to do things. Nobody needs a full 8-hour day, right? That structure is dead. All right. So now you have these hedge funds that are buying up single family homes, reducing supply and pushing people towards rental dependence. This is what's happening. BlackRock, Vanguard, and others are turning home ownership into corporate rental markets. Okay. They don't want you to own, they want you to subscribe. Think about this. Think about the amount of things that we're paying for on a monthly subscription. When we hang up this call or you see this, just write down a list of things that you pay monthly. We are working to pay for convenience. One more time. We are working to pay for convenience. And guys, listen, there's a tip bot down there. Brown, definitely appreciate you on that one. Invite some people in here, guys. It's all free work. But, there's some things in there too. All right. So now, what's the next subject now? The universal basic income situation. So if we have a dwindling job market, the government has to do something, because if you have blood in the streets, there's no citizen that's going to be safe when people are hungry, right? You're going to have the have and the have nots. This is where we're headed. So we have to create a system of universal basic income. This is going to be a major driver. And it's here already, guys, with the Section 8 program. You can't think that you're immune to this, right? If we're in this bubble, somebody's going to get popped. Right? We're not all on this freedom train. The 1% splitting from the 1%, and then the bottom 99 is it's not getting any better for most people. So now we're underskilled. They're cutting back. You get rid of DEI, which wasn't for Black and brown people. Actually, it was white women who used it the most. Basically, it's a clean slate now. Everybody just has to figure out their thing. I'm a firm believer in people rely on people instead of people relying on government. So that's the standpoint that I operate from. Now we're calling it the People's Bank. You go to the People's Bank, you'll never need anything. And this ain't about money, guys. So don't let it go over your head. All right. So universal basic income. All right. So in the world of mass automation and AI driven jobs, governments may introduce a UBI, which is a free monthly income to keep the peace. But here's the catch. This stuff is already happening. They've been testing it in different cities. Mayors, it's happening at the state level. Universal basic income is your credit score. Universal basic income is a reward system, or a system that if you can get rewarded, you can get the opposite of that. So Section 8 is a form of universal basic income. There's a lot of universal basic income out here, guys. Any sort of assistance that you get, right? Any system of reward. Okay, so we have to see that this thing is here already. All right, so what if that income is issued as a programmable CBDC, which stands for central bank digital currency? You can't think they're not going to go for that. So when you see Trump and them dismantling the old guard, don't celebrate, because when you take down the Vatican, the here, the there, you start taking down these old systems, the central banks, the power has to be given to someone else. And this is what they're doing right now. We're seeing a power transfer. The power could actually go back to the people, but I don't think the people are woke enough to put this together. So the power is going to go to what they call the tech oligarchs now, right? They're going to be more powerful because they have our time, they have our attention, right? So he who controls your mind controls your time. Who controls your time controls your mind. You guys kind of get the drift of that, right? Professor D, big shout out on that one. So Now we're here with this universal basic income. Jobs are dwindling. Housing market is pricing and stuff are going up. People can't afford it. We have a generation of people in our generation of people in America that aren't buying. They don't believe in the path to home ownership. It's another conversation. I purchase real estate as a business, not as a personal um, white picket fest and stuff like that. That ain't it, guys. That's the banks win. So you have to know how to buy real estate, right? You guys are paying retail. That ain't it. All right. And then you don't understand the economy and what happens. You don't understand even the world that you're in and how that's being affected. You send your kids to college, not realizing that in 4 years, you're not preparing them or the college is not preparing them for the future that lies. This is why it's important for us to understand all these systems right here. All right. So what if the digital wallet restricts what you can buy, where you can spend, and how much you can save? What happens when compliance equals survival? I can remember sitting in Philly during the pandemic and, joking with my wife, like, oh, you think we can go eat today? And it wasn't a joke. They kept going back and forth. If you didn't have the vaccine card, you couldn't eat. Like you couldn't get into restaurants. Like it was just nuts. And I refused to, one, get it, obviously. But two, I refused to even get a fake card because I'm like, I'm not even subscribing to this herd and sheep mentality. And now we see how many years later from it, data is starting to come out. Most people that took it are ignoring the data. You might want to check in on it. And then those who said whatever is kind of like, I kind of told you so, but we knew this. So we weren't in the way. They made you feel like we were in the way. And again, another form of divide. They are controlling every outcome. You can't even make a decision for yourself. So now you want to speak properly on housing, and you may not even know anything about housing programs. This is what's happening online. I can't get all this out in a minute and 30. All right. So here comes this cryptocurrency. This is why I teach it. It's called a parallel system. You can control your own money in here. You can opt out of state-run financial systems. You can earn through DAOs, DeFi, or other open ecosystems. So if you didn't hear, I had a talk on the new middle class in our YouTube page. So if you're new here, head over to the YouTube page, a couple videos in. It was recently, within the last week, where I talked about the new middle class, right? The destruction of the destruction of the old systems. Now, the only way to make it out of something is to not keep doing what you were doing before. Because if it's working, then I keep pressing a button. But if it's not, I could tell you that shit's about to get tighter. So we have inflation, stagnant wages, right? Drop a one in the chat if you guys have stagnant wages. Are your bosses telling you, hey, here's an extra whatever for cost of living and inflation? No. And then the money sitting in the bank is losing. So if you're not investing, you don't know how to preserve or grow capital because you're working for money. You cannot work your way to wealth. All right. So if digital feudalism becomes the default, crypto is the digital underground railroad, right? It gives you ownership, it gives you privacy, it gives you mobility in a system that's becoming more and more controlled by the day. All right. So we've been seeing massive changes in housing policy. Big players are building employer controlled worlds. UBI and programmable money is on the horizon. It's here. So if you don't choose freedom on purpose, then it's going to be picked for you. All right. And this is why we're in cryptocurrency. This is why I educate every day. Digital feudalism. If you don't believe it could happen, ask yourself, when has this country ever gave something that can benefit all people? And then for the people in the back who are like, oh, everybody just needs to get up to work. Don't kick people while they're down because you'll never know what position that you can be in. And this is from a guy that's made it, lost it, made it, right? Gone through the ebbs and flows of being an entrepreneur in the last 30 years. No W-2, no cosign. Wake up every day, have to figure things out. That's why I feel like I'm an authority figure in the changing landscape, right? I'm not too old to be, or not even old. I can't even say that. I pivot well. I came up with the internet. I can live without the internet. I understand the things of the past that are great, and I can embrace the things in the future that are great. So good, bad, or indifferent, we're all we got. So I ride with the People's Bank. Let's talk about it.